Okay, guys, today we're going to talk about wise counsel. Have any of you ever experienced where you've been in some sort of a situation and you needed advice and someone came along at just the right time? They just sort of show up in your life sometimes and it's exactly the right thing. So today we're going to talk about that in the case of King David and Abigail. This is found in 1 Samuel chapter 25. So, in this case, Abigail is married to this guy Nabal. And according to the Talmud, or the Jewish oral tradition, she is one of the few female judges to rule over Israel. And this guy Nabal she's married to, his name means fool. He's actually a descendant of Caleb. What's really interesting is he's a pretty rich guy. He's from this land named Mon, or Paran is this area. And David, during this time in his life, is actually kind of hiding out from King Saul, who's been hunting him. So he, during this time, he'd been in and out of kind of Nabal's property. And when they were there, conquering people in the area or hiding from Saul, they also protected his sheep during this time and Nabal's property. And during this time, David's like, they're hungry, they're famished. These guys have been fighting and they need replenishment. So David sends 10 of his dudes to go up to Nabal and say, hey, I know it's shearing season and I know you guys are going to be celebrating. There's going to be a little party. Do you maybe have a little extra to spare for us? Because like we're in need of refreshments. And Nabal is this hot-tempered guy. He is instantly ticked. And he's like, who do you represent? Where did you come from? And they're like, David. And he's like, oh, you mean that guy that ran away from his master? You mean the one that Saul has been hunting? Like, he's like totally a jerk and basically tells them, get lost, get bent, get out of here. You ain't getting nothing from me. So they go back and tell David. David is hot. He is ticked. And so he basically kind of starts a march back to Nabal's place and is like, this guy, because during this time, hospitality is a big deal in the Eastern culture, it still is to this day. And so he really kind of owes him. David's kind of calling in an IOU, and Nabal's like, too bad, dude. So anyways, they go back and he's ticked. And as soon as they had left, some of the servants went up to Abigail, his wife, and said, Abigail, we got a situation. Nabal, you know how hot-headed he is. These guys, 10 of David's dudes, came asking for food. And I think there's going to be trouble if you don't help him out. Nabal told him to get lost. And you know he kind of owes that IOU. He should have taken care of these guys. Without hesitation, she loads up, has her servants load up donkeys. She loads up like 2 sheepskin full of, or wineskins, 5 sheep that have just been slaughtered, 200 loaves of bread, about a bushel of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and about 200 figs. And she loads them on the donkeys, tells her servant, get going, I'll be right behind you. She hops on and they're following down and they're kind of going through this canyon. And as they do, David is on his way and they can't see each other around the bend, but David's like, so help me, if any of David's, or if any of Nabal's guys are alive by tomorrow morning, may God strike me dead. Talk about some real indignation. He's really upset. Well, Abigail hops off her donkey. She sees him. She bows down low and she says, please forgive me. I didn't even see your guys come. Please accept these gifts or this offering in peace. I so, want to make things right with you. And on top of it, this is where you see her wisdom shine. It says Abigail was a woman of beauty, but also of wisdom. And she said, David, so far, your hands have been clean. So far, the only lives you have taken are those that God has sent you to make justice for. You have not raised your hand in anger toward anybody. Even as Saul has pursued you, you have not taken life, even when you could have. Don't soil your hands. Don't get your hands dirty. And basically she told him, the reason you're alive is because God has blessed you. And it was like this just stopped him in his tracks. And he was like, he kind of had a moment of just kind of checking himself. And he was like, you're right. I should never try and get my own justice, but God should give me my justice. And so he said, okay. And she said, God will deal with him, is kind of her response. And he's like, okay. And they leave in peace. Ironically, not ironically, actually. Abigail goes back home. When she goes back, Nabal is still celebrating. He's quite drunk, really enjoying himself. Abigail knows this is not the time to tell him. She does need to tell him what she did, but she knows that this isn't the time. So she waits till he sobers up in the morning, and she lets him know, hey, saw David, I gave him some stuff, made peace with him, that kind of a thing. Well, Nabal, loses it. He totally loses it. And they never clearly say what happens. There's a few versions. Some say he may have had a heart attack. Some say he had a stroke. But either way, he took to his bed for 10 days before he then died. And God had handled that. Even when David got word, he praised God and said, thank you for handling that. I thank you that basically that God had sent intervention so that he wouldn't lift his hand in anger and take his own justice. Because Abigail was widowed, when David did hear this, he did send word for her and asked if she would like to be his wife, which is a pretty impressive thing. But anyways, I think the point of this, though, is, sometimes help shows up at when we're in the most odd places or the most difficult places. And we have had help just show up out of nowhere with exactly the right counsel. I know that's happened for me in my life. I have been in quite a pickle, and just out of nowhere, God will send me help. So hopefully this is a reminder to you as well that God always will be our help when we need it. I hope you have a blessed day.